I'm a police officer from Manchester, in the UK. A job I've had since I was 25, and it's a career path I'd always wanted to take. For the most part, I enjoy my job. The sense of helping people is a big factor in that. The job itself can sometimes be draining, with working long hours and your fair share of action. Mostly the usual calls like car thefts, drunken antisocial behavior, shoplifting, not always something major. But having said that, those few certain call-outs you do get and have to deal with, well, there are just some things that you're not ready to come face to face with. Things that really do stick with you and make you look at humanity in a different way. I'd been in the job a few years when this call-out happened. I did a mixture of shifts, and this ended up being on my night shift that had just started. There was usually more activity on the day shifts, if I'm honest. Unless it came to a weekend, then the nights picked up. However, this was a Thursday night, so I wasn't expecting too much. A call came in as myself and my partner were patrolling. The call described was in regards to a man reporting that he believed something had happened at his neighbour's house, as he hadn't seen or heard from them in over a week. Yet their car was still there, and he'd noticed it hadn't moved in a week. Sounding like a nothing case, we were reluctant to go check it out. It wasn't until the man had mentioned that the last he'd heard there was some shouting happening. Deciding to go and check it out to put the neighbour's mind at ease, we headed to the location. As we arrived to the location, you could see it was a quiet street. Looking at the house, it was dark. The lights were all off, and indeed, their car was on the drive still, which meant nothing to us as it didn't mean anyone was home. Stepping out the vehicle, we looked around as we approached the house, and hearing a voice call out to us, we could see the neighbour who had made the original report walking over to us. As we asked him a few questions, you could see the concern on his face. He told us of the couple that lived there, and although they were quiet and usually kept to themselves, he hadn't seen anyone come and go for days, and he usually saw the couple daily. He'd even knocked on and called them to see if he could borrow something. He then mentioned how, as of late, he had heard the couple arguing over the past month, and as he thought back, he remembered the last time he'd heard them arguing. That was the last time he'd seen them. But he really didn't think anything of it at the time, until he had tried to get in touch, and with him calling he had heard the mobile ringing from inside the house. After hearing the man out, I proceeded to walk to the front door and pressed the bell, calling out asking if anyone was home. There was no answer, just a tense silence in the air. Walking around the side of the house, I tried peering through the window, but couldn't really make anything out. The neighbour began ringing the phone as he told me to look through the one window. As it rang, I could clearly see the glow of the phone as it rang out across the table. Asking the neighbour a few more questions about who lived there, he mentioned how the boyfriend was strange, had a bit of a temper issue from what he'd heard before. Deciding to investigate further, myself and my colleague got the permission needed to enter the house. Walking up to the front door, we gained ourselves access, and as we stepped inside, the silence was deafening. My eyes scanned around the darkness of the rooms as I slowly made my way in, calling out to again, silence. The first room I checked was the front room. I could see the phone lying on the table plugged in and charging. As I walked over examining it, I saw the screen displaying a mixture of missed calls and unread messages. Looking further around the room, I then heard my colleague's voice calling out to me. Making my way back into the hallway, I could see him at the bottom of the stairs with a concerned look on his face. Calling me over, his flashlight lit up the stairs, where I could then see what was dried blood on the carpet. Not only that, but a repulsive smell hit the back of my nostrils. A smell that made my eyes water. With no sign of anyone, dried blood on the carpet and a disgusting smell seemingly descending from upstairs, I felt the uncomfortable tension building in me, as both my colleague and myself, as if reading each other's minds, unclipped our gun holsters, readying our weapons. Trying to shake the smell, I took the lead and began to slowly climb the stairs. With each step I took, the smell intensified tenfold, causing me to hold my breath and cover my nose. As I reached the top, I stepped onto the landing. The old floorboards creaked beneath me. I looked to my left, seeing nothing. Looking to my right, I could see more patches of dried blood, scattered like a trail up the hallway, leading to the room at the end. Shining my flashlight over, my pulse began to race as I saw the bloodied handprint on the doorknob. Telling my partner to hold back, I slowly crept up the hallway, gripping my gun and flashlight, calling out one more time, looking for any sort of response or sign someone was there. But again, I was met with nothing but silence. The sweat dripped down my forehead as I reached the door. I slowed, feeling my heart race, not knowing what to expect on the other side of the door. I slowly pushed it open, as the creaking of its hinges shattered the silence. The rancid stench wafted from inside the room as it grew. Stepping forward and looking into the room, what my eyes fell upon, I wasn't ready for, causing me to turn as I gagged and threw up. Turning back and looking again to confirm what I saw was real. It was. Lay sprawled on the floor was a woman's lifeless, rotting body, missing its head. And to my disbelief, sitting upright in a chair in the corner of the room was the lifeless, grey-skinned body of a male, his throat slit, and laying in his lap was the decaying head of the woman, as flies crawled all over them. Hearing the sound of my colleague throwing up from behind me, I knew he had just seen the haunting sight I had discovered. Backing out of the room, we rushed outside, gasping for the fresh air as we heaved, literally tasting the smell of decaying bodies. The neighbor still outside asking us what we saw. No explaining what we found, we called it in. It wasn't until the other teams arrived that a more thorough inspection was completed. It was found there was no sign of a break-in or any third party involved. Through the following weeks of investigations and interviews from the few people who knew the couple, and through texts found on the couple's phone, filling in some key information, it was discovered this had been a murder-suicide. What was officially confirmed was the boyfriend had discovered that his partner had been seeing another male. Upon this discovery, being so enraged and already in a poor mental state, he had killed his partner, taking her life and her head before killing himself. And through the texts found on the pair's phones, in his words, so nobody else could ever have her or come between them again. After that night, I still struggle to this day to get the picture of that woman's face out of my head. The whole disturbing sight I still see vividly. I'm still on the force today, and that has been, and hopefully will be, the most messed up thing I've ever had to deal with. I've been on the force for over 5 years now. I'm a state trooper who loves the job that I do. But having said that, an incident that happened to me this past year has reminded me just how dangerous my job can be, and to always watch my back. I work a lot of night hours where my typical shift would be 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. And this was one of those nights. My shifts could sometimes be busy, but this night was rather quiet as I was driving down the highway, embarking on my usual routine. It was around 3 a.m. on a Sunday morning. With the roads being dead at that time, I decided to pull over at a rest area that I was passing. I stopped for around 5 minutes when a set of headlights lit up in the distance as a car passed me. As it passed, it caught my attention for a few reasons. 1, it was going a bit too fast. 2, it had a taillight out. And 3, as I watched it, it seemed to swerve slightly. The highway I patrolled was covered by forest on both sides, so within seconds of watching it move, the car was out of my sight. Feeling the need to investigate further, I pulled out the rest area and back on the road, taking it about 65 as I soon caught up. As I came up behind the car, I hadn't made it known yet, and I didn't have my lights flashing. As I watched the sedan begin picking up speed as again it swerved, I decided to pull it over. I hit my lights, making my presence known and signaling for the car to stop. It began to slow, but took a while to come to a stop. When it finally did, I pulled up about 8 meters behind it. Making my way out the vehicle, I walked over to the driver's side window, trying to look inside, but the windows were tinted. I knocked on the window as the driver slowly brought it down. As I could finally see the driver now, I could see it was a male in his late 20s. But from first impressions, something was off. You could see he was sweating. His wiry eyes were accompanied by an overly friendly smile as he greeted me, asking if everything was okay. His hands were clamped on the steering wheel so tight his knuckles were white. Firstly, I mentioned to him about his taillight. Again, with his overly friendly smile, he claimed he never knew and that he would get it fixed straight away. I didn't know if it was just me at first, but I was picking up a strange vibe from the guy. I agreed with him about getting it sorted ASAP. I then mentioned the speed he was going at. Again, that smile on his face. He apologized, saying he would definitely slow it down. I then asked for his license and registration. That's when he hesitated. He just paused for that moment too long before saying he thought he had it somewhere, just needed to locate it. As I looked at the guy's face, keeping a close eye on him as he slowly began to rummage for it, it was then I heard something. A faint thud, seemingly from the back of the car. I froze, listening out, as again I heard another thud, this time louder, and unmistakably coming from the back. Looking back at the guy, the smile had gone from his face as he glared at me. I told him to remove his keys, place his hand back on the steering wheel, and remain where he was. My hand reached for my sidearm as I made my way to the back of the car, taking 2 steps towards the trunk. It was then I heard it, and my stomach began to turn. What sounded like a muffled cry came from inside the trunk. Shocked by what I had heard and all my attention on seeing what was in the trunk, I had stupidly neglected and taken my eyes off the driver, which nearly cost me dearly. I felt a sudden bang as I crashed to the floor, my head whipping back. The driver had exited the vehicle and lunged at me, knocking me to the floor as he was on top of me. The adrenaline surged through me as the fear grew inside of me, seeing the man wielding a knife, bearing it down towards me. His weight pinning me down as the knife pressed too close to my chest. I'd managed to grab his wrists in time as I fought to hold him back, my heart pounding as it took all my strength to prevent the blade from piercing into me. Managing to roll with him, I forced him to the side as we grappled. With his weight finally off me, I managed to twist his arm, causing the knife to fall as it skidded across the gravel. Scrambling to reach for my sidearm that had been knocked from me when he tackled me to the ground, I finally retrieved it, but it was too late. The man had already sprinted off into the woods, disappearing into the dark tree lining, preventing me from getting an accurate aim. My adrenaline was maxed out. As my breathing was fast, I quickly called it in as I heard the muffled cry from the trunk again. I finally popped the trunk, and what I saw shocked me. Inside the trunk lay a terrified woman, bound and gagged, duct tape over her mouth, her wrists rubbed raw. Her eyes were wide and wet with terror. She couldn't speak, but the relief in her eyes when she saw myself spoke volumes. Waiting no longer, I removed the duct tape from her mouth as her distraught cries rang out. I cut her free and helped her from the trunk as the emotion poured out of her. Within minutes, backup had arrived. Paramedics attended scene, checking over the woman who had visible sustained injuries, causing her to be taken to a nearby hospital. Later that day, in the early hours of the morning, relief washed over me, as after hours of searching, the driver was finally located. He hadn't got far. He was located and apprehended a few miles down through the woods when he tried to make his way to town. After interrogation of the suspect and questioning of the woman in the trunk, we were later able to learn the truth from that night. The woman in his trunk was his ex-girlfriend. They'd been together for years, but things had turned dark, violent, and had gotten worse over time. He'd been beating her for months, maybe longer, and from how it seemed, she had been too afraid to leave. That night, something in him snapped, and he had tied her up, stuffed her in his trunk, and had every intention of driving her out into those woods with the intention of making sure she never came out. I look back on it now, and am thankful I made the call that night to pull that vehicle over. It still gives me chills today, thinking about the sight of finding her in the trunk. If I hadn't have stopped that car, she may have never been found. I also realize how lucky I am from that night. It's not lost on me that I had a lucky escape too. I'm sure that guy had every intention of using that knife to kill me, if he had his way. Thank you for joining us and watching this chilling video. We hope you enjoyed this topic, and you found the fear within. What other subjects would you like to hear soon? Let us know in the comments what creeps you out. If you're new here, say hello, and don't forget to like, share and subscribe. Become a part of the Horror Motives world. See you soon with another terrifying video.